All right, here we go. What's up, everybody? It is the Halloween season, which means pumpkin spice is back literally everywhere. And it is also back with Jocko Fuel. 22 grams of protein, 2-pound bag. The pumpkin spice protein powder is back for a limited time just for the Halloween season. Get yours today and use promo code Reyes Reflection to save 10% off your order. Again, Reyes Reflection to save 10% off your order. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Reyes Reflection Podcast. There are a lot of options out there, so I appreciate that you make me one of them. We are always free to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, YouTube. All you have to do is just click a button. And, of course, follow me on the socials at I'm Nathanael Reyes. Some love to my partners, Mad Rabbit, Tattoo Aftercare, BYOB. Build your own bundle and use promo code Reyes Reflection to save 20% off. Jocko Fuel. Pumpkin Spice Protein Powder is back for a limited time. Save 10% off when you use promo code Reyes Reflection. And Peanut Crunch snacks to fuel your fitness. Code here is MULCE10. Now, on to the introduction of my guest. This individual wears many hats. Some people may know him as a basketball player from his college days at LIU Post, an author. Some could even say an actor for his part in the documentary Big Shot. A broadcaster, host for MSG Network and ESPN, Emmy winner, Han Solo, and I can't wait to unpack all of this. So without further ado, Alan Hahn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. How are we doing today?
Not bad. How about yourself? Thank you for doing this again. I know you're a busy man. I know you fit me in, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, we're good. Getting ready for another show and getting ready for a new NBA season in a couple of weeks as well.
I know. It's super exciting. Right. This is the best time to kind of get content in, especially for the NBA. I see you have your NBA. Now, would you say that's your favorite sport to cover?
Yeah. Basketball has been like the main thing for me. I mean, I have other passions. Hockey is something I love. Football, obviously, is something that's really big in what we do at ESPN, and obviously, for me personally, especially this season, I'm a Jets fan. So with the Aaron Rodgers stuff and the drama surrounding that team, it's never a dull moment when you do New York sports talk radio, which is also part of what I do. So yeah, those are my three mains. I mean, I used to really love baseball growing up, but I've it's fallen to fourth place for me at this point in my life. But basketball is definitely the main one, and this is the time of year with preseason beginning that it really gets exciting because all four of them are playing at the same time, which is a rarity. You don't get that too often during the year.
I never really realized that, too. I've been watching sports my whole life, but you just mentioned it. I never realized that October, you're right, October baseball, that's when the playoffs are. There's still that excitement of the new football season and basketball season and hockey too. So yeah, no, I never realized that. It is a really exciting time in sports. It's something I just never realized, like until you just mentioned it right now.
They call it the sports nirvana.
Yeah.
And that is when you get on one day all four playing at one time. And in New York, we've had that because there have been times now our baseball teams aren't in the playoffs this year. But we have had situations where on the same day, the Yankees, the Jets or Giants, the Knicks or Nets, and the Rangers, Islanders, or Devils all played on the same day. And that is the ultimate sports nirvana when they all are like obviously it's usually a Sunday or a Thursday or a Monday because of the football teams. But we have had that at times, and that's what they call it. They call it the sports nirvana. Everybody's playing, and all the games matter.
The perfect storm. Yeah.
Yep.
You mentioned New York. Is that where you were born and raised? Is that kind of where your roots are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a New Yorker, born and raised. My parents are, New Yorkers. I think I'm about third generation as far as New York goes. Myself grew up not in the city, but on Long Island, which is a suburb of New York City. It's not far away at all. But I've always considered myself a New Yorker. No matter how many times I tried to move away, it always pulled me back in.
Where else have you lived other than New York?
Well, not really, not roots down, lived anywhere else. I mean, I've traveled a ton,
Right.
but never really like an address anywhere else. That's never happened, no matter how many times I wanted to or considered it. I had job offers around the country, and every time I was ready to go, it was always a better offer came in New York, and I ended up staying.
So you ended up just staying close to home.
Yeah,
I've only been to New York maybe once, twice in my life, and one was in passing. And of course, the only time I went was Times Square, and I did all that,
sure.
the
Yeah,
tourist stuff. Now,
yeah,
I've had some friends who have lived in New York, and they say that each suburb is so big, it's almost like another city within itself. Would that be the
yeah.
same for you, or would you just say because you're so accustomed to it, you're like, no, it's not. I'm just curious.
No, it's accurate. In fact, there was a time where Brooklyn would have been one of the like largest cities in the country
No
by
way.
itself as a borough. Now it still might, but but there was a time, yeah, it was considered if you just took the borough and made it a city, it would have been one of the largest cities in the country. Now, each borough, it's funny, each borough does feel like its own city, but mainly not only because it's so big, but because each one has its own personality.
Mm,
Like wherever you are, you know just by feel where you are, or even by like visually.
yeah.
Queens looks a lot different because it feels a little more suburbish, even though there are still, there's still some tall buildings. It's still a densely populated area, but it has more of a neighborhoody feel. Brooklyn obviously feels very city. Bronx, it feels very much like city, but more neighborhood city. Staten Island feels like suburbs, and that's another one. And then obviously Manhattan is Manhattan. It's nothing else like it in the world. So, you always know where you are just based on you can feel it. That's the difference. And anybody that's from whether they're from the Bronx, from Brooklyn, from Queens, like they also have an attitude about it too. Like that's where I'm from.
Oh, so it's a
And so it's
pride
something
thing.
that it is a pride thing. It's something you rep. Like
Yeah.
it's definitely something you rep. And the birth of hip hop is something that you really learn about it that way because it becomes like where did the better music come from?
Okay.
So there's so much of that when it comes to that stuff that makes it so unique. It's 5 boroughs. It is one city, but it's 5 very different personalities in each one.
And it's kind of wild how it's because it's completely separated from upstate, where like Schenectady and Albany, I
Oh
think,
yeah,
right? Yeah. So
yeah.
that's its own sort of
That's
area.
another world. That's Canada.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly right.
like the way we are downstate. Like even like for where I grew up is Long Island, which is a suburb, which is again it's an island that's connected to Queens and Brooklyn,
Yep.
like by land, but anybody knows you cross the border from Queens into Nassau County, Long Island. It's like you just like everything changes. Like now there's more trees, more grass, that kind of thing, more space.
Yep.
But it in itself could we consider like we're our own state. Like we don't really, even though like
Yeah.
people always say, like when we talk about Jets versus the Bills, and it's a Battle of New York. It's like no, that's Buffalo. That's like Toronto. Like
Yeah.
that's Canada. We don't look at it as that's not really New York for downstaters. New York is if you can touch the city, you're New York,
Yeah.
not people that are 4 or 5 hours up that way. Even though they are really more of the state is up that way. It's hard to explain to people, but
No.
that's how we are.
No, you're not wrong, and because you're right. Buffalo's right next to Niagara Falls, so you're
Yeah.
right. It's right next to Canada, so
6 hours away. It's so far.
that's Canada. No, I agree with
Yeah.
that. I agree with that. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that you're a big New Yorker, Knicks fan, Jets fan. So obviously, you were obviously devastated with the Aaron Rodgers. I personally, so I was supposed to go to the game when they faced Kansas City. And my friends, we were going to go as a big group, and we were just going to have a weekend in New York because it was a Sunday night game. Then when Aaron Rodgers blew out his Achilles, I was like, yeah, I don't think we're going to go anymore. Like, because I wanted to make the trip to be able to see Patrick Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers. I was like, I want to see that. Funny enough, I'm from Massachusetts, but I'm not a Boston sports fan. I know there's a big rivalry, Boston, New York. I'm not a huge Boston sports fan. So
Wow.
yeah, you would think the opposite just because of how Boston is so.
How do you get away with that? I can't believe you didn't go to that game just to see Taylor Swift. It felt like everybody wanted to go to that game
Oh yeah,
just to see Taylor. Come watch Taylor Swift watch football. I thought that's what they were bidding it as at that point.
at that point. That was the narrative. No, but this was
Yeah.
even before because my friend, he's a huge he is from Wisconsin and Green Bay, so he's a big Aaron
Oh, yeah.
Rodgers fan. So
Yeah.
he just wanted
Yeah.
to go to see Aaron Rodgers one more time.
Mhm.
And now he's in the military, so he's stationed over here, and so he was like, "Hey,
Right.
let's go check it out." But this was over the summer, and then he had something that weekend, so we weren't able to make it happen. But I guess everything happens for a reason. But you're
Sure.
right. I could have seen Taylor Swift in a very darkened box, and then and had the aesthetics of being able to see Taylor Swift at least.
That's what everybody was excited about that game, but it ended up being a good game. It
Yeah.
ended up being a very competitive game.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Zach Wilson played probably the best that he's played so far. So
They look good.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Need more of that.
As mentioned in my intro, you played college basketball. Talk to me about a little bit about that experience of why you made that decision to go play, because I believe you played for a legendary coach. Talk to me about why you wanted to go play at LIU Post, because contrary to popular belief and how it looks, you're actually, I believe, about like 6'4", 6'5". Is that right?
6'6", but
Oh,
that's all right.
okay.
As you get older, you feel shorter. But yeah, no, I played in high school. I always, I wasn't, great. I was decent. I had to work hard to be good, pretty much. And so for me, every time I had an opportunity to see if I can take the jump and play in college, I would always get hurt. Like something got in the way, and so for me, playing in college ended up being a good experience, but it wasn't much to talk about because I had a couple of pretty bad knee injuries that limited how much I could actually play.
Oh no.
So there aren't many good stories to tell. As far I'd love to tell, some great stories about winning championships and all that stuff, but that's probably what pushed me to get into the media and covering the sport, because I love sports, grew up loving sports, but when you get to a point where you realize, like, okay, something's telling me I need to stop playing, but I wanted to stay connected, and this was the way to do it. So I started focusing on my degree in journalism and working my way into a career that way.
Yeah, the knee injuries, when they start compiling and adding up, it's trying to tell you, hey, it's time to hang them up.
Oh yeah, yeah. Your body lets you know, like, this isn't for you. You're probably better watching than you are actually trying to play.
Exactly, exactly. Could you still dunk though? Because I saw a video where you did the whole, you got the where you jammed it in front of the rim, so you had the whole tingle down the spine. But then you did dunk. So can you still dunk
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I do have proof on TikTok that I can at over 50 years old, and every year I do it on my birthday. I've been doing that for many years. I had my last surgery on my knee in my early 30s because I just had enough of the pain and not being able to move around and stuff. I started having kids and I wanted to play with them. So I had one more pretty massive surgery done. And since then, I'm like, all right, the one thing I always wanted to do was, because I actually, I wasn't a good player, but I was a pretty good dunker. I could jump, and I had some pretty good dunks for a white guy. And, and I, and so once the surgery was done, that was my determination, is to get myself strong enough again
Yeah.
that I can dunk again. And then, so when I did it, I was like, all right, now I never want to lose this feeling. So, thanks to Peloton, I stay in enough shape that once a year I get myself out there and I prove I can throw it down. And a couple of years ago, with cameras around, we did an event for ESPN, and somebody was just like, "Can you still dunk?" And I said, "Let's see." And went up, and all right. So the first one, it took me a minute to warm up, but
Yeah,
the
you had to
second
warm
one
up.
was pretty. Yeah, but the second one went down pretty easy, so I felt good about that.
Yeah, your body just had to warm up. It's like, hey, it's been a while
That's
since
it.
I've done this. Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. It's once a year, so I had 364 days that I hadn't done anything. So it took me a minute.
That 364 days, your body is like a slow machine that had to
You
reboot.
wait. You wait till 50 hits you like that. Like you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like getting up out of that couch that you're sitting in right now. It might be easy, but not once you hit 50, it's a little bit harder. Trust me.
I can't imagine. So I probably have not had the same. So I too had a knee surgery about a year and a half ago. And the wild thing is, I sit here and I ask myself, I go, I don't know how people have multiple of these. And as you mentioned yourself, where they're constantly going through rehab, constantly going through the process of trying to even learn how to do mundane, simple things like walk or go down a flight of stairs. I remember when
Things you don't think about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember when I tore my knee and I was at the PT office and she's like trying to tell me to bend my knee, and I was petrified. I'm sitting on the back, and I like a dog with all hind legs up, and I was petrified. And she's like, "No, it's okay. You can bend it." And I just didn't trust myself, which I guess makes me appreciate people like yourself and even these pro athletes who have had 4 or 5 multiple significant injuries, and they're still rehabbing and going through that process. It makes me, because I watch it on TV, and I'm like, wow, that guy just came back from a catastrophic injury, and they're jumping through the roof. And I know I know medicine was different because when you tore your knee, I think you tore your ACL, I think I read, and it was around the time where medicine wasn't as strong as it is now, where I think I saw in an interview you had said it was like a death sentence back then.
It literally was. Yeah. Back then as an athlete, no one was coming back from them.
Right.
And like Bernard King in the NBA was the first to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tore mine, he had come back and was playing in the NBA. So that was like they were trying, when I was in college, like they were trying to put that in my head, like, you can do it. And I said, it took him 2 years.
Right.
Like it took 2 years. And I kept saying to myself, I was, but I'm in college, 2 years. I can't, they offered me to, red shirt. You can do an injury red shirt and just, take the year and then come back after that. And I just felt, at that time, like I said, I was, I just was 20 years old. And I thought,
So
do I
young,
want to be
too.
in college when I'm 22 years old or 20? Like, I just said, no, and there's no guarantees, that I could have done it. So
Right.
I admit now I let go of the rope because I didn't want to go through it, because the first time I went through it was so agonizing and frustrating because I didn't completely tear it the first time. So they just did like a scope to clean it up. And they just said, if you strengthen your leg, the partial tear, you can still play through it. And that was not accurate at all. So I went through this, like you mentioned, it's an arduous process of, breaking up scar tissue where they're bending your knee and it's just, you're in so much pain. It hurts so much. And then going through while your team's practicing and everybody's running around, I'm sitting in an ice tub. On this machine, the Cybex machine. I'm doing all these things. Like you just feel so detached from the team. And then you come back and you start to feel somewhat normal. And you're trying to get your head to tell you, I'm fine. Take that step. It's not going to give out on you again, right? It's okay. And you hesitate because you're afraid. You know what that felt like. You never want to feel it again.
Yep.
And so you play hesitant, which is not what you want to do. And then, of course, the minute you stop thinking and start playing, which is what you want to do, that's when it completely popped on me. And that's like such a nauseating pain.
Yeah.
And it's not like, again, it's not something, it's not the pain part. It's that you just get nauseated, like, because you know what happened. So you're sick from the thought of, like, it's over. Like, and that's where I was at that point. So, yeah. So when I was older and got the final surgery, that was the full reconstruction. No more screwing around. No more trying to piece it together. That was months. And, that's a process that when you're older and a little more mature, you can get yourself through it. But it's simple things, like you said, walking around, being able to just hop onto a train, hop off a train.
Yep.
Just going downstairs where instead of just walking carefully, you just bounding downstairs like when you were young. Those are things you take for granted.
Yes.
I'm late. I got to I got to run and I can't, like you're afraid to run. So that takes a while to get out of your head. So yeah, I'm the same way. What Rodgers is trying to do coming back from Achilles, what I saw Breece Hall, who was a running back for the Jets, do coming back from an ACL. I marvel at that stuff all the time when I see players, and I always talk to them about that stuff because it's relatable how difficult that really is to do.
Like you said, it's a process that is very challenging, very difficult, and then seeing
Yep.
it happen, it just shows you how far we've come in advancement in terms of medicine
Oh yeah.
and rehab.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's amazing.
which is great to be able to appreciate those athletes now. So, I do want to switch gears a little bit. So, becoming a sports analyst and a broadcaster and a journalist, that became a process of because of this knee injury. When did Newsday become a reality for you? Because you had done that for 15, 16 years, I think I read. When did that become, this is what I'm going to do?
It was not easy because I had a late start. Most people that go to college and journalism majors and stuff, they take internships, whether it's during a semester or in a summer. You'll work at a major paper. You'll get a lot of experience and clips and things. Let me preface this by saying I am a fossil. So when I was in college, there was no internet, there were no podcasts. There was no Reyes Reflection. There was none of that stuff. Like there was simply a newspaper, a magazine, or in very small, rare cases, sports talk radio. That's it. No internet. So you had to get to a newspaper was extremely difficult because there weren't many jobs open and they weren't hiring young people with no experience. Newsday was my hometown paper. That's a Long Island-based paper, and they also they're based in the city in New York City as well, but it started on Long Island. So I grew up reading it. And so my goal was to try to start there and start small. And that's what I kept applying for part-time, like you're a desk clerk, you answer phones and,
Yep.
You're just helping out in the office, basically. Like you're not really writing, you're not doing anything, but it's just a foot in the door kind of job. And it took me a year to get that, but, finally did. And it wasn't because of any experience I had. It was because the high school sports editor recognized my name because I played and my name was in the paper when I played. So she recognized my name, and it was as simple as there was an opening and I got the job,
Oh, wow.
simply based on the fact that, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I remember you used to be in, okay. And that was it. And so it started literally like answering phones and writing like 2-sentence, 3-sentence little blurbs I didn't have a byline, nothing. And that's that's literally starting from the bottom. But back then there was no other choice because I didn't have any experience to get myself into a bigger paper that a lot of guys who graduated from college with a journalism degree. You went to Northwestern, you went to Syracuse, you went to schools like that, NYU. You could get into bigger papers. I couldn't, and so I had to start at the bottom. But thankfully, once again, basketball helped me at least get the start I needed.
It's kind of impressive to hear this because I think how you mentioned you were a fossil and internet and wasn't around and things of that nature. That's interesting to me because I think that almost hurts people nowadays that there is all this internet. And the reason why, it's like all things, there's pros and cons. And what I mean by this is nowadays, if they saw your story, they wouldn't see the hard work that you went through to get to that point. They would just all of a sudden see ESPN and radio shows and things of that nature and think, wow, he's successful. But they don't see the hard work that you had to do to build up to that. And I think that internet, in a way, almost can be deceiving because it can show somebody, hey, look, I'm quote unquote successful, but it doesn't show all the hard work, that grunge work that you had to do to even get your foot in the door. So in a way, it's almost admirable to hear this story because to hear you being able to have to kind of go through the dirt a little bit, go through that mud of, I'm just putting my foot in the door. Exactly, the grind. The grind, it's cliche. The grind doesn't stop when people say that type of, sayings.
Well, you have to be like that. And, whenever I talk to like college classes and stuff or you get people that reach out and they just want to know, like and a lot of times you meet somebody and they're just like, how do I get where you are? And I said, it took me 20 years. Like, that's how,
Right.
Because it doesn't happen overnight. And I will argue that it's not really the best thing for it to happen overnight because you have to fail a lot.
Oh, completely.
You have to make mistakes a lot, but you also have to watch others do it first to get a sense of like what to do, what not to do, what your voice is going to be. Like there's so much in this business that you can come in hot like a meteor and you can fizzle out quick because it's, maybe you're lucky and you get an opportunity early in life and you just jump on the scene. If you don't have any perspective at all, you're going to get like overwhelmed so fast and people will give up on you quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as easy as it looks. I try to tell people, and I always say that you really do it. And I know it sounds cliche, like you said, but embrace the grind is a real thing because the amount of hours that you put in when nobody's watching, that's the stuff that matters most when finally people are watching.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have an experience to draw from when, all right, I covered this event or this game or this moment, and man, did I screw that up. But fortunately, 7 people read the story. So nobody really knows that I screwed up, but I know I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned from that for the next time. Like that's the kind of thing that sometimes is good. It's just like the minor leagues. It's like playing in the minors and finding your way until you're ready for the show.
Yeah.
Like that's a real thing in sports. And in this business, a lot of times that's a real thing as well. Now, there are some that are just born for it. They come in, they're just perfect. Like they just really good at it. But a lot of times I try to promote the idea of don't worry about making the big leap early. Worry about where you're going and what you're doing that helps develop you to be ready for when that opportunity comes.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of trying to a lot of kids I know, they'll do, oh, I always wanted to cover the Jets. So I have this Jets podcast and we talk Jets all the time. And I'm like, that ain't going to get you, that's nice. It's fun. It's great. But if you think that's going to then lead to something, like you said, the internet now, you are one voice among millions.
So competitive.
It is very, very difficult to really stand out now because everybody has something to say and everybody wants to do pro. And I always say that's nice, but develop yourself doing other things that matter, where it's an announcer who's calling high school. There's a kid I know, he started doing this in high school. YouTube channel for his high school, he would sit courtside and call a basketball game.
Really?
There's nobody was watching it at first.
Yeah.
But little by little, he's doing it, and he's developing himself, calling play-by-play of a game that the parents are happy that somebody's showing the game and putting some play-by-play on it. But aside from that, there's nobody really watching it. But the more he does it, it's the experience and listening to himself, watching it back, taking notes. I need to be better at this. I got to develop that. More research I need to do, whatever it is, that by the time he finished in that high school, he used all that to help himself get into a really good broadcasting school. And now, he's on his way.
That's
impressive.
He
did it all himself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say a lot of times, you could feel like I'm talking to myself. Nobody cares. Nobody's watching this. It doesn't matter. You're developing your voice and how you want to be as whatever it is in this business you want to become. And that's kind of that is literally my story. Because it took me 3 years till they really used me as a regular writer and 4 years till I became a beat writer. So that's a long time to wait for an opportunity, but I wouldn't have been ready if they took me right away. I was ready when they brought me in after 4 years of being a part-timer.
It's like baptism by fire. Sometimes you can't, some people do just be thrown in and they can be fine.
Yep.
But in some cases, like you said, you need that experience. You need that failure. I think that's a big thing.
Yes.
A lot of people are afraid of failure.
I agree.
And to me, it's like we need failure. We need to be taught. We need to learn. We don't have.
You got to learn from failure.
Exactly.
You can't be afraid of it. You can't be afraid of it. You can't feel like that the failure means it's never going to happen. No, the worst thing about failure is you don't learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Failure isn't the problem. It's not learning from failure. That's the problem. It's not accepting failure. That's the problem. And that is just something that when you're younger is hard to deal with.
Yes.
Because when you're younger, you're very sensitive to criticism.
Mm-hmm.
You're very sensitive to anyone pointing out your mistakes or realizing that you're not perfect at it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you can't hone your skills and get better at it.
Yep.
There are some that are just born with it. There's some that are you just look around, oh, you got it. You already know what you're doing. You have the voice. You have the mental capacity. You understand it. Like you're on your way. Those are rare. Those are the stars. But the rest of us might have to grind a little bit and work on it and hone our skills, and then you can get there too. They'll get there faster, but you'll get there too. It just takes you a little bit longer, as long as you are patient with the process and don't start to feel like all is lost, woe is me, and it's never going to happen. I've never believed in that. If I did, I don't know what the hell I'd be doing today, but it wouldn't be this.
Yeah. I think this is so amazing to hear, especially from because you won an Emmy. Friday Night Knicks, you won an Emmy. So that's kind of impressive to hear from somebody who started with hey, I'm just going to go ahead, put my foot in the door, throw my name in a hat, do the best I can. And then 15, 16 years later, you won an Emmy for a show. So I think and you're an author, and you've switched from being behind the scenes to being in front of a camera, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I think it's just so important for people to hear this type of story. As I mentioned, you won an Emmy. Talk to me about that. What was that like for you to be able to win this Emmy after all these years? Because I think it was like 15, 16 years after you started that you won. What was that like for you?
It's cool. Well, it was part of broadcast. So individual Emmy, I've been nominated twice. In fact, I've nominated again right now for individual one, which is, studio analyst, Emmy, I guess that's what it is for. And, those are special because it's just for you. I was nominated for writing a piece that I did, that I wrote the script for, and did the voiceover for it. I was nominated for that, but didn't win that one. So that's the kind of the thing for me, is to get one that it's yours. The four that I have, and I think you can see two of them behind me.
Yep.
Those are part of a broadcast that I was on, and that's a team. Like, to me, that's what's special, is when it's a team win, when it's all of us. It's the announcers, the producers, the directors. When we put together a full show, and that wins, that's a cool thing, because it's a collective. And again, somebody that grew up like me and playing team sports, it's like, feels like winning a championship. Like, so we had the best.
Yeah.
And we did that 4 times, and that's pretty cool, because one was for a whole season. One of these Emmys is for the entire year. And that's amazing. One of them was for Friday Night Knicks, like you mentioned. That was the very first one. It was when Jeremy Lin played for the Knicks. It was a Friday night game at the Garden. He put 38 against the Lakers. He went against Kobe Bryant. And our coverage from start to finish, which went up against, this is MSG Network now, the local, we went up against ESPN, who had the national game that night. And our coverage for that night was so good, it won an Emmy. And that's saying a lot. So when you're part of a team like that's that good, it feels extra special, because you can share it with everybody. But
Right.
there's the ego part of you that is like, all right, I've been nominated. This is the 3rd time now I've been nominated for an individual analyst Emmy. I got to win one eventually, just to have that one too. So there's always a carrot dangling for you, man.
Yeah.
It's never, you're never satisfied. You always want, okay, what's next? And that's kind of the what's next for me.
There's always a brass ring to chase. It's just whether or not you want to go for it. Yeah, most definitely.
Yep.
You talked about Jeremy Lin. That's actually when I went to New York and went to Madison Square Garden and Times Square and things like that. And the amount of jerseys of Jeremy Lin that were just around every vendor on the side of the street was insane. Like, it really was a phenomenon. It was just, it took over the basketball world. I'm dating myself a little bit. I was I was a senior in high school at that time, and we went on a high school trip, and that's why I was able to go and experience Linsanity. And it was just, it really was crazy to just see how this one individual took over basketball for three weeks.
Came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Literally out of the G League, at the bottom of the bench. The next thing you know, starting and making clutch shots, and literally the offense was running through him.
Yep.
The ultimate rags to riches story, sleeping on his teammate's couch in his apartment in the city.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't have a place. He didn't, it's such a cool story. and he's such a good guy. Like, obviously it changed his life,
Mm-hmm.
but it was it was a fun couple of weeks,
Yeah.
in that season where it just one week, and I'll never forget one week the Knicks, because they had a bunch of injuries, and so they were losing games. They lost a game in Houston, and late in the game they were getting blown out. But late in the game, the coach put Jeremy Lin in the game. It's a blowout, so you're emptying the bench. And it's just true story. You can go back and find the video. I'm watching it, and so I'm saying, you know what? The system he likes to run, this guy actually runs it really well. Like, that's what you're looking for, is a guy who plays like that. And so in the pregame of the next game, which was a home game, I had the producer put a little highlight of his garbage time in that game. It was just, again, blowout, doesn't matter. But I said, just put a little Jeremy Lin highlight package together, because he scored a couple of points late. I want to just show that that's what they need from that position. They need somebody that does what he did in garbage time. So we did it. And it was the pregame show they were playing the Nets that night. And I'm like, this could work. So the game happens, and they're losing again. And all of a sudden, the coach brings Lin into the game. And I'm like, let me see what he does here. And that's when it all began. Suddenly he started scoring.
Yeah.
And it became, whoa, there's something here. And that's when You Got to Start Him was the next game, and it just took off from there. So it is amazing how you see a little something and you say, that looks right. I need to see more of that. And like I said, that's the fun of this business. If you're really into it and you spot things like that, that's and then it turns into what it turned, which is nobody saw that. Like, even I was saying, like, I'm not saying this guy can start. I'm just saying that that's what it needs to look like. And then 2 games later, he's starting, and he's a phenomenon all around the NBA.
And I think he was Mike D'Antoni was the coach,
D'Antoni.
right? Yeah.
Yep,
so
right.
It was like you said, he liked that pace and space, and he was a runner, and I remember seeing that.
Pick and roll.
I remember seeing that game as, I think, the game that you're talking about where they're getting blown out, and I was watching it, and I was like, wow, he really is. He does exactly what Mike needs. He really does.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so
the high screen and roll stuff that they love to play, a lot of that's Steve Nash when he was in Phoenix.
Yep.
It was literally, he understands how to come off the screen, and he can make shots. And like I said, if you know what you're looking at, you don't have to, you don't have to be sensationalist about it.
Yep.
You just say it. You just, hey, everybody, look at this.
Yeah.
And then a game later, it's like, hey, remember when I told you to look at that? See what I'm saying? And then 3 games in, you're going, okay, nobody saw that coming. So, it was a fun part of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit. So now you're on camera, especially for ESPN, and you have your own radio show and things of that nature. You've covered First Take, which is a very, very big show on ESPN. You've done Get Up as well. You've even stepped in for Greeny, and I know that you've talked with Stephen A. and stuff like that. And now you're on national TV with these very strong figures of the media. And I think MSG Network, is Mike Breen on that too? Have you worked with Mike?
Oh, yeah.
Breen? Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's an icon in that industry.
Yes.
So talk to me about that. What is that like for you? What does that mean to you to be able to see yourself? Some people see themselves on TV and they go, and they cringe a little bit. But for you, what was that? What is that like to see yourself?
I cringe every time I see myself on TV, but for different reasons. What's funny is when things happen, I don't think about it that way. The Get Up experience for me just kind of happened pretty fast. I mean, I was doing national morning radio show for ESPN, which was in the studio next to Get Up and the same studio as First Take. So the first real experience I had was hosting the morning show with Keyshawn Johnson and Jay Williams. I was filling in for about 5 months because the original host got sick and he couldn't work. So they needed somebody, and I had radio hosting experience, and I was in New York. So they were like, can you fill in? Sure. So we were on ESPN2, but you're doing a radio show, so you're not really thinking about playing the camera. but it was enough to just get a feel for it. Now you're, as I've always said, you have to observe, right? You pay attention to where you are. So I'm there in the mornings, and now I'm around the people that are doing the other shows. So I'm seeing, Mike Greenberg, and I meet him. And I've known Stephen A for years, but now I'm seeing him at work. I see Molly. I see just how it all happens, without the pressure of having to perform. I do in my radio show, we're having fun, we're fine. And enough people saw that to say, hey, we need you to come on and do this. So, like, yeah, if you need somebody, sure. So it started out with Get Up. And actually, it started out with First Take because Keyshawn was going on the show, and he wanted me to go on with him. So Keyshawn was the one that kind of said, no, bring my guy on too. So the two of us then went on because Stephen A was off that day. They needed two guys to debate, and Keyshawn wanted it to be me. So we did a full show together. So that's my very first experience on that kind of stuff. That was pretty wild. Then Get Up was, also then said, hey, you want to come on and do a segment? And then it became more segments and stuff like that. And then it was, can you host, which I'd never done before in my life.
Yep.
But I'm not going to tell them, no, I can't. I'm just going to figure it out. Yes. You never see in this business, you don't say no. You just give it a shot. But I'd watched Greeny enough. I'd watched other people enough to see how it works. The prompter, the moving from camera to camera, the moving around. And in reality, if you aren't thinking about, like, what are people thinking? What are they wearing? No, just be yourself and make everybody else shine. And that everything else take care of itself. Have some humility. If you make a mistake, laugh at yourself. Don't worry about it. Be casual. And that was my mentality. And then it became about reps. And so the more you do it, the less it becomes, like you're not thinking anymore. You're just in it, and you're in the rhythm of it. And that's kind of what I fell into. So I don't think about it. I don't sit there and go, wow, I'm on national TV right now. I just am thinking about, hey, I'm talking to Jeff Saturday and Kimberly Martin, and I know them well. So I'm going to talk to them, and we're going to have some fun. Like, I don't, here's our topic, and this is a cool topic. And, we have great meetings. The producers are unbelievable on shows like this. They work so hard to get you ready that you can't possibly fail because they're so good at preparing you. Mm-hmm. So there's so much of that you put into it, and then I pour into it as well in research and all that it doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun. So that's really where it's at. And then the opportunity to work with Mike Breen, which I actually have called games, like Nick games with Mike Breen on MSG Network. And that, like I said, I prepare. So I'm up to his standard. So I do all the work before the game so that when the game starts, and he's such a maestro, he's so talented, he's so good, he makes it so easy as a play-by-play guy that you don't even have to think. You're just in the flow of a game with all your research in mind, and you just know when to interject and have the conversation, when to lay out and let him be the big voice that he is. So it never ever felt like overwhelming or difficult. It felt very natural to me and comfortable. Now, to finish it, I'll say this. When it's over, oh, hell yeah, do I go, like, yo, that was awesome. Like, that was cool. Like, that was great. Yeah. Like, like you let yourself have that moment. And, luckily there's people around that'll take photos for you and then send them to you and say, hey, I got this great shot of you and Mike, or, there's a great shot of you on the set of Get Up. I'll send it to you. There's people that do that for you. Or there's clips that are sent out, and I will go back and watch back and say, how did that look? How did I, and then sometimes I'll cringe, and sometimes I'll laugh, and sometimes I'll say, that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, no,
but no, you never have time to say, you never have time to say, oh my God, like I'm here. Oh my God. Like you're too busy focused on what you have to do that you can't think about, the hundreds of thousands of people watching or listening. You're just too worried about doing the job and doing it right.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I completely understand because, You're right. You at the end of the day, it is a job. It's an opportunity, like you said. You're not going to say no, so you're going to take
Yep.
that opportunity. You're going to ride the bull. You might fall off. Yeah, you're going to grab the bull by the horns, and you might.
You're gonna no, you're gonna fall off. You're gonna say something stupid. You're gonna miss on a joke. You're gonna say something wrong that is inaccurate. That you're gonna go, why would I say that? Like I know the number is this. Why would I say that? Like there are times where you just misspeak.
Yep.
And it's how you handle those times. You can't let it rattle you to a point where now you're just your brain is fried. No, you've got to just you own it and you move on.
Yeah.
You just like you learn how to get through it. And how do you learn that stuff? By watching how other people do it. And you watch, and then, like I said, you don't copy. You take from everybody. Because there's some things that people do. You're like, yeah, I would never do that. There's no way I'm doing that. Like, I'm not doing that. That wasn't handled the way I think it should have been handled. Then there are times you're like, that was perfect. I got to remember that. The next time that happens to me, to do it that way. You just take a little bit from everybody, and that's how you form your own voice.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. As a father, as a person who has multiple, like I said, you wear multiple hats. You're an author. You work for essentially two different networks. Where do you find the time to gather all this information so that way you are ready for the show? I mean, you must not sleep. I don't know if that's the case, but where do you?
Yes.
How are you able to be so well? And to a degree, you have to have multiple topics that you understand or that you're able, so that way you just don't sound silly. Where do you find the time and the resources and the skills to be able to hone those abilities so that way you can perform well?
It's lots of studying. I mean, it is. You study constantly. I study more now than I ever did in school. It's just but what you're studying is something that you understand, that you know well already.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just adding on top of things. There's not a lot of time for rest. There's not a lot of downtime. People in our business, we always talk about trying to, pull the plug and just shut down and relax. It's usually our spouses that try to get us to stop and just take a break. There are times you feel like you need it. There are times where you're just so full of adrenaline, you don't want to stop. But it's just a lot of research. It's a lot of just reading up and paying attention and learning, thinking about things. You're consumed by it. I'm not good at binge watching shows. I couldn't tell you. There's very few things in pop culture I can tell you about. I like music. I'm a big music fan. So that's my break, is I get into music, different types of music. But, I work out to be able to think better, and to be able to dunk once a year.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I don't have much of a social life. So, that's just the reality of this job. But you have to be consumed by it, and it can't feel like work. And it never does for me. Like right now, like I'm an hour away from starting my radio show.
Mm-hmm.
This is usually when I'm preparing, and this is like the mornings are consumed with preparing. I sit on a train and I'll read and read and read, and I get into the studio, and it's like mentally I got to be ready to go.
Yeah.
And that's every day. It's the challenge. But like I said, if you love it, you don't think of it as work. It's just, this is what I do.
Yeah. I remember in high school, a teacher said to me, you make your passion your vocation. So if you love something and you do it, then it doesn't feel like work. When you hear people say it when you're younger, how we mentioned earlier in the podcast, how when you're young, you think you know everything. When you hear it when you're young, you're just like, yeah, whatever. But when you get to the point of, hey, I genuinely am loving to do it and it doesn't feel like work, then it may not be so difficult. And like all things, there's probably good days and bad days, but it's probably not as stressful as if you're waking up doing something that you don't genuinely love to do. So
yeah. It's the idea of like, I don't, I get to do it. I don't have to do it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yep.
That's the mentality.
I love that mindset. Yeah, most definitely. Real quick, while we're wrapping up, because I know you said you've got a show in about an hour. What is some advice that you would give to someone who wanted to be in your shoes? I know you kind of mentioned it, but what is just one piece of advice that you would give to someone who wanted to be even in this field?
Well, I mean, success happens when, talent and preparation meet, right? Like it's just the idea of just always being prepared for everything that you're doing. And I'll stress this again because I say this to anybody that's, young in the business, it's no job too small. You can't look at something and think it's insignificant to you because it's not big time. You don't do things in this business to impress people. If you are doing things to impress people, your head's in the wrong place and you're never going to be successful because you are like, it's the thirst trap.
Mm-hmm.
You're spending too much time worrying about what other people think instead of focusing on getting better. It's all the things that we do in the dark will show in the light.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're lazy in the dark, don't think you can put on some act and people will look and say, "Oh wow, you're a real go-getter." No. Trust me, it shows. The light shows everything.
Yeah.
So this light, when that light goes on, you can't hide.
No.
And it's seen quickly. TV is fast. You've got to have a take quick. You got a reaction quick. And if you don't have it, move it on to the next voice. And if you don't have it quick enough, or if you don't say something of significance or of any type of background or perspective that people respect, where it's like, oh, that's, I get it. Yeah, you have this, or you're speaking from experience or any of that stuff, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to start big with the big lights. No job too small. The very first story I ever wrote in a newspaper that had a byline on it and mattered was for high school badminton.
Really? Wow.
High school badminton.
Yeah.
The very first byline I ever had at Newsday was a story about a high school badminton team that had won like 300 games or 350 games in a row. It was like a Guinness Book of World Records thing. It's a high school badminton. How many people do you think read the story? I wasn't writing it for that. I was writing it for the 50 people that were going to read it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wrote it for. I wrote it like it was Game 7 of the World Series, like it mattered. That's what you put into it. And that's, to me, again, what matters. So you can't think about the significance of the job you're doing. You have to make it significant. That's why no job too small. If it's an opportunity to get better, you take it. Don't worry about somebody that might have been like, what did you write? You wrote about badminton? Yeah, your career's really going places. Like, because I got that.
Yeah.
I had friends of mine that teased me, joked me about it. Like, really? That's your big break, badminton? I was like, yeah. I got a byline in the paper. That's the first one. It ain't gonna be the last one. So that's the mentality you have to have. So again, no job too small. And what you do in the dark shows in the light. Keep that stuff in mind.
It's true. I like that. You have a very successful career, but if you could do any other career that's not this, what would you have chosen to do?
Oh, I would probably be on the team side whether it's not, I don't necessarily think coaching I would probably have loved to have tried to start on the coaching side and work my way up. But, I think in team management, I'm fascinated by team building and how you run a team and all that stuff. Like, it was going to be one or the other. Those are the two things for me. Now, a third one, which is a wild card that I never would have thought of as a kid, but now I look back, is I would have loved to have been like, they don't have them anymore, really, but a radio DJ, radio station, like,
like a disc jockey,
like the old school guy that would play a record and then talk a little bit and then play another record and talk a little bit, like that that's the kind of thing that would have been fun. It's just unfortunate all that stuff's automated now, so that would have been a bad career choice.
Yep. No, I think you chose the right one. If you could,
it chose me.
Yeah,
it chose me.
I didn't choose this life; it chose me. If you could meet any athlete, present or past, who would you want to meet? I know you've probably met a lot, but I mean one that you've never met, that you've always been like,
Wow, that's a good one. I might go all over the map with this one. Like, you can get one that'll tell great stories. You can get one that just with the amazing perspective. I don't know. Like, yeah, for me, I've never been like that.
Yeah.
Like where I really like, oh, I wish I could have met that person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like when I meet people, it matters to me, and I've met some really great people. But yeah, I don't know. I can't name just one.
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
I really can't. I can't name just one, unfortunately. I know it's a cop out,
Yeah.
but I'm being honest.
Yeah. No. No.
I really am. It's a cop out, but I'm being honest. Like there aren't many that like anybody that I've wanted to meet, I've kind of met
Yes.
and talked to.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are people though that I find amazing and I've had amazing conversations with. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna cop out and say I really don't have an answer for that one.
That's all right. I like it. I like the honesty. I like the candor. You have a lot of cool sports memorabilia. Is there anything that is a prized possession for you in terms of a sports memorabilia that you're like, this is my prized possession?
Um, I have a couple of things. This right here is a photo of Willis Reed walking out onto the court at the Garden in 1970, Game 7, when he took a shot of cortisone into his knee
Yep.
or his thigh, which allowed him to play. It's they call it the Willis Reed moment. He signed it to me, which is, that's special because, and we just lost him. He passed away earlier this year. So he's considered the captain, like one of the greatest Knicks of all time, and just was a great human being. So that's special to me as far as sports memorabilia goes because it's personal.
The significance.
And somebody that and somebody I've met. I have a great photo with him where I was talking to him. We were I was asking him for advice actually, and it's one of my favorite photos that I have of him. But yeah, that's one of when it comes to memorabilia. I'm not a big collector like that either, so that one's special because it's personal.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Last question here. What does Alan like to do that is non-sports related? I know you said listen to music, work out. What do you like to do that is not any relation to sports whatsoever?
My favorite thing to do is to attend my kids' games. My son's a hockey player. He plays college hockey. My daughter plays high school volleyball. My younger one plays hockey herself. And my oldest used to run track. And my favorite place to be is wherever they were competing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd spend all day just watching them play. It's just, there's something special about that. Because when you have a career of watching other people perform and compete, it's nice when it's one of your own.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I could be anywhere, it's there.
I love it.
With them.
That's beautifully said. Where can people find you so that way they can see what you're up to and things of that nature?
Yeah, I'm on all of them. I mean, it's it depends on which name I am. TikTok is Han Solo NY. Instagram is A Hahn MSG. Twitter X is just my name, Alan Hahn. That's my biggest following is Twitter. I used to be a big, I used to post a ton. I don't really post that much anymore. I'm there more promoting things and just reading up on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I should be better at the gram, but I'm not. It's just I'm not a big selfie guy. So, it's only when something cool happens or something I'm part of is that I'll post. But, those are the places that you'll find me most. And then I have a huge Knicks following on Facebook under my name as well.
Perfect. Well, Alan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sitting down, having this conversation with me. When I see you on TV and I see these things, it's interesting how you mentioned earlier in the interview how even myself, I'm a big fan of yours. I love watching you on TV, and now sitting down with you, just talking to you, it's like, wow, he really is just a normal guy. He just the profession chose him, and he works hard, and that's why he's where he's at. So I really appreciate that you took time out of your busy day to sit and chat with me. I really appreciate it, Alan. That is going to do it for this episode of the Reyes Reflection Podcast. Don't forget to share the show, follow me on the socials, and you know the deal. May you live, may you love, and may you thrive. What's up, everybody? Nathanael Reyes here, and get this. I am working with a company that Mark Cuban invested in. It is Mad Rabbit Tattoo Aftercare Skin Products. You can go ahead and create your own bundle today and use promo code Reyes Reflection to save 20%. Again, Reyes Reflection to save 20%. Get yours today.